The top business stories live from Sky News headquarters. Tesla's stock continues to slide amid a political backlash against Elon Musk. We'll be joined by one of the company's long-term investors. UK steel bosses tell MPs that consumers are cancelling their orders because they're spooked by Donald Trump's tariffs. Plus, out with the newspaper ads and in with the virtual reality headsets. What the ONS inflation basket tells us about the modern consumer. A very good afternoon and welcome to Business Live on this Tuesday with me, Darren McGaffrey. We're going to begin with Tesla because it appears that its year is getting worse, with its share price continuing to slide today, down another 4%. Its value has dropped by more than 40% since January, and European sales have plummeted while it's facing increased competition from China in particular. The main reason for the slump appears to be its boss. Elon Musk's move into the world of politics seems to have triggered a backlash against his cause. Let's speak to Ross Gerber, who is president and chief executive of his own investment and management fund and is also a long-term Tesla investor. Very good afternoon to you. I suppose my first question is this a crisis for Tesla?
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, they have the best vehicles, electric vehicles out there. It is a fundamentally important company in dealing with climate change. The battery systems and the charging systems that they've built are top in class. And here the company's reputation is just being destroyed by Elon Musk. And sales are plummeting. So yeah, it's a crisis. You literally can't sell the best product in the marketplace because the CEO is so divisive.
Is it simply down to him, though? I mean, many people will also point to the fact that the car is not quite as innovative as it once was. Are there different factors at play here as well?
That's not true. I drive a Cybertruck, and this car is so far and beyond any other truck that's ever been invented. You know, every Tesla element of Tesla, and granted, in the last year it's been neglected, but it has so much potential. It makes other cars look like, you know, Legos. So the issue is not the car. There is a lot more competition, for sure. And people are choosing the competition because of this. But by far, Tesla makes one of the best vehicles on Earth, and if not the best vehicles on Earth.
And I noticed that you have sold quite a lot of shares over the last year. This was even before he joined the government. Why was that? I.e., could you see this coming? And are you planning to sell more?
Well, you know, I'm one of the few people who've been involved with Tesla for over a decade now as an investor and as a user of the vehicles. And I consider myself somebody who knows the most about Tesla, one of the most, you know, knowledgeable people about the company. And one of the things that I'm sure of is when you're in the car selling business or the battery storage business, the way people view your brand is really, really crucial to the purchasing part of the purchasing process that humans use. We really identify with the cars we drive, especially in the United States. And so, you know, when your brand gets tarnished like this, it's real bad. So when Elon bought Twitter, which goes back to 22, that's when we actually became concerned. And that's when the stock actually topped, was in November of 2021. And so when he bought Twitter in early 22, that's when we really became concerned because of his lack of focus, and tweeting all this kind of garbage just really picked up in that period of time. So I had no idea at the time it would go this far. So this is worse than anybody could imagine, right?
Well, he's got X, he's got SpaceX, he's got Tesla, he's got his government job now as well. Is he simply trying to do too much? What's your advice to Elon Musk today?
Well, I think we all make choices with our time, and Elon doesn't get more than 24 hours a day just because he's Elon. So we make choices. All of us do. Do we spend time with our family? Do we go golfing? Do we work? And how we do this is, you know, each individual chooses. And so Elon chooses to work, you know, all the time, but you can only work so many hours a day. So it's 24, right? And he sleeps. So So there's no question he's been committed to his job at the government. That's where he's spending his time. He is not running Tesla. And, that's why I'm going to say it. I think Tesla needs a new CEO. And I decided today I was going to start saying it. And so this is the first show that I'm saying it on. It's time for somebody to run Tesla. The business has been neglected for too long. There's too many important things Tesla is doing. So either Elon should come back to Tesla and be the CEO of Tesla and give up his other jobs, or he should focus on the government and keep doing what he's doing, but find a suitable CEO for Tesla.
So you are saying essentially if he's not prepared to quit that government job, he needs to go? Yeah,
I think it's time.
Is there a personal animosity here? Some people might wonder whether there's a personal axe to grind from your point of view.
No, in fact, I would argue the opposite. I'm extremely grateful for Elon. He's made me extremely wealthy, and my firm has grown tremendously because of our investment in Tesla being so successful. It's probably one of the most successful trades of all time. We made over 100 times our money. And, so what am I going to do? What it makes me sad is I care about climate change. I live in the Palisades, and I recently almost lost my house, and I live about a block or two from the disaster area, just on the way into work. I have to drive by it now every day. And I'm one of the only people living in the Palisades right now. And when you see climate change as close as I have right in my face, there's no thing more important for people to understand that we need to fight climate change, or we will all suffer greatly from its effects. And Tesla is an important company for this.
And just very, very finally, Ross, on this, effectively, if he doesn't change direction like you would like him to see, how toxic is this now? Effectively, how bad could it get? How low could the share price go, do you reckon?
Well, we use fundamental analysis in stocks, so you can compare the valuation to a stock like NVIDIA, which trades at 40 times earnings, and Tesla's expected earnings this year are $3, and that might even be in jeopardy. So that 40 times $3 is 120. So, the downside risk for Tesla is still substantial if it gets valued like all the other great tech companies in America. So the fact that Tesla has 2 times the value of even the greatest companies in America is still confounding to me with the turn that Elon's taken.
Okay, Ross, really appreciate your time this afternoon, live there from Santa Monica at Ross Gerber. Thank you very much indeed. OK, so UK steel bosses have been telling MPs that customers have been cancelling orders since Donald Trump announced his plans to hit US tariffs metals, I should say, with tariffs. The Tata chief executive said customers were considering moving suppliers to avoid getting caught in a trade war. Let's go straight to Ed Conway, our economics and data editor, who's been keeping an eye on things. Ed, let's get a sense of what's going on here. This is a sign that, the tariffs are already really hitting home.
I mean, it's a big moment, Darren, OK, because if you think about it, so steel is incredibly important for basically all of the big goals that the government has, about rebuilding, about investing, creating more infrastructure. You've got defence as well, so more focus on defence. You need steel for defence, whether it's armaments or to produce all of that extra equipment we're going to need potentially in future. So steel is right at the epicentre at the moment, but at the very same time as it's incredibly important, it is also in the firing line when it comes to tariffs. So the only, so far, of the major tariffs that has affected the UK, these tariffs coming out of the US, is one on metals. And 25% tariffs have been imposed on steel, exports from the UK and indeed other countries around the world into the US, and aluminium as well. And this has an impact. It has an impact. And I think what was interesting is we heard from various different steel makers at it was the Business and Investment, Business and Trade Committee, I should say, today. We heard from them that it is already really having an impact. And there's 2 ways this is happening. First of all, you've got the UK companies, whether it's Tata Steel, we heard from British Steel as well, so up in Scunthorpe, they are exporting stuff to the US. And right now, some of those lines are just not profitable anymore. And at the same time, there's another issue, which is a lot of the steel that was going to go to America is now being diverted and needs to find another place to go. And it's going to the UK. And so it's difficult for them to compete as well. Put it all together, and they say it is a big problem. And it's only early days now. It's only basically a week since these tariffs have actually come into force. But for many steelmakers, it's basically all coming at the worst possible time because it's coinciding with issues like high energy prices, with the blast furnace at British Steel up in question right now. There's a live debate, and John Bolton, who's leading the government's work on just deciding what the steel strategy is going to be, was talking about the fact that you need to keep these blast furnaces going or else you've got a big problem. Well, right now the plan is potentially to shut down those blast furnaces, but no one knows what's happening. So it's a big moment, and this was, I guess, our first sniff from hearing for various different business leaders in the Commons today about what's happening. But believe me, there will be much more to come on this, both on tariffs and on what is the fate for the British steel industry. We invented steel manufacturing back in the Industrial Revolution. Well, we could well shut down our last blast furnace within a matter of months, but no one knows right now.
Yeah, really, really quite worrying times for the steel industry here in the UK. Ed, as always, appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed. Ed Conway there, live in Westminster. Now, the Work and Pension Secretary, Liz Kendall, has unveiled the government's plans to reform the welfare system and save £5 billion by the end of this decade. Well, let's speak to Vincent Bellevue, who is Chief International Officer at the Workforce and Talent company Cornerstone. Very good afternoon to you, Vincent. I suppose the first question is, what was your impression of the Secretary of State's speech?
Look, I'm very impressed that the UK government is stepping in the focus towards upskilling and reskilling vast amounts of people that currently are out of the workforce. We see this in governments around the world, and we believe that to like organizations and companies that invest in development of their people to survive and thrive, seeing governments doing the same investment to augment their workforce, bridge skills gap, probably bridge talent shortages as well across industries is very positive.
Positive indeed, but there are many people clearly quite unsettled by these changes because it does mean people essentially receiving less welfare and the impact that can have on individuals. How does the UK compare to other countries when it comes to its welfare system? We know that one of the reasons the government's taking this action, Vincent, isn't it, is because actually welfare claimants, the number of people claiming welfare has risen quite substantially in recent years here.
Look, obviously the announcements are very new, so we don't have the fine details around the concept. What we know is the government wants to invest in upskilling and reskilling a large portion of the population that currently is actually not active. We see this as very positive, as we see other countries, other geographies where there's investments in initiatives similar to the England Skills Initiative, where the government is working to ensure that as AI, as technology evolves, as there are workplace changes, we just talked about the steel industry changes a minute ago, and as all of this unfolds, making sure the country is prepared to stay competitive and ensure that as many people can contribute to the success of the country and as many people can be successful themselves, and ultimately making the private and public sector, and in particular the private sector, very, very, very successful.
And just finally on that, is this something that technology can clearly help with? You know, there are people who simply aren't able to physically go to work, for example, but with changes to technology, with the right skills, one assumes that actually the access, if you like, to the workforce is a bit more flexible these days.
Very good point. I think the reform is timely in that technology has progressed so much, accelerated by COVID for sure, but further accelerated via AI, that we now have an opportunity to democratize certain levels of skills that were not available to people before. Think about when Excel was invented, for instance. It allowed a number of people that may not have been mathematicians, if you will, to perform a lot of calculations that were useful in respective jobs. Well, now with generative AI, a lot of people are able to produce materials and contribute to society in ways they couldn't just a few years ago. So there is certainly a democratization through technology that happens. That said, you know, we need governments and institutions and organizations and companies to step in and foster this, facilitate it, so that we have the maximum contribution from the workforce in the UK, and we're seeing this elsewhere as well.
Okay, Vincent Bellevue from Cornerstone, thank you very much indeed for joining us on those welfare reforms set out by the government this afternoon.
Thank you.
OK, you're watching Business Live here on Sky News. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, what the ONS's inflation basket tells us about the modern consumer. Talking about that in just a couple of minutes after this quick break. Stay tuned.
Mayhem in the Middle East, rippling in America's West.
Get back! Get back!
The resolve of these protesters is now being seriously tested. I saw police being forced or pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests.
None of this is a peaceful protest.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. How are you feeling?
I am angry. It is an anti-woman agenda.
Sky News, get the full story first. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support, but it's nasty out there.
Can you beat Donald Trump, Governor? President Biden, do you trust President Xi? President Biden says that this meeting went well. He said real progress was made on a whole host of issues. Will your candidates win?
I hope so. I think they will. I think they're great candidates.
There's no doubt that Kamala Harris and her team are harnessing the power of social media. Do you think Kamala is brat?
Kamala's brought.
Are you scared?
Yeah, we were scared. It was terrible. Strong wind, building tearing down.
As them say, our God works, so we can't do nothing.
The people here know that worse storms may well be on their way. Free, wherever you get your news.
I've had severe nightmares of these people coming in and just taking me in the middle of the night.
Ghislaine Maxwell has pleaded not guilty to all 6 charges against her. Mum, how are you feeling today?
Jeffrey said, you answer to Ghislaine, you just don't cross her.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Is this now all your territory?
Yeah. The battlefield is outside the barricades. We are in the middle of a forest, in a jungle really, and they're attempting to keep these men alive. I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent. It's really dangerous. Many people have died riding it.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club.
4 more years!
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
This is the game changer seat. Look, it even comes with binoculars. Fly Emirates, fly better.
Very welcome back to Sky News. We're going to just bring you up to date with some news coming into us. That's about the Israeli military action that we saw in Gaza overnight. We've heard from the Israeli Foreign Minister in the last couple of minutes saying that the initial decision to launch strikes was made several days ago, and also suggesting that this is not a one-day attack. We will continue the military operation, according to the Foreign Minister, in the coming days, going on to say that they are doing everything to minimise human or harm to civilians, and also suggesting that the Americans had been informed and supported that military action that we saw take place by the Israelis in Gaza overnight. We'll have more, of course, on that story and the rest of the news with Mark Austin in just under 10 minutes' time at the top of the hour at 5 o'clock. Now, let's talk about inflation, what we spend, what we buy, because one way of finding out what consumers are spending the money in is to look at the Office for National Statistics basket of goods and services. Every year, the ONS updates its measure of inflation to reflect the changing tastes and habits of all of us at home. Well, in this year of virtual reality headsets, pulled pork and yoga mats out apparently are local newspaper adverts. Let's speak to Stephen Burgess. He's Deputy Director for Prices at the ONS. Stephen, very good afternoon to you. So yoga mats and virtual reality headsets are in.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me on. Yes, as you rightly say, at this time of year, every year we go through a process of updating what we call the fixed basket of goods and services to make sure it's as relevant and as in line with what consumers are currently spending as it possibly can be. So in our basket of about 750 items, we tend to bring in and take out about 15 or 20 every year. As you say, maybe the most eye-catching thing this year is we brought in virtual reality headsets. This is a really fast-growing area of expenditure. We think expenditure has maybe tripled since the pandemic, and analysts are expecting it to go on growing over the coming years as well. So this is one of the most important things we wanted to bring in this year. We've also brought in, for example, yoga mats and men's sliders as well, a growing area of the men's footwear market.
Yeah, it is indeed. I have to say, I remember now, it's many years ago, when salad cream was removed and I was devastated because I worked out I was one of the few people still buying it. Still a big lover of salad cream, must be said. Let's talk about what is on the way out, though. And again, newspaper adverts, local newspaper adverts, I would have thought they might have gone a long time ago, given where newspaper sales are at.
Yeah, I've got the same sort of nostalgic view that you have as well. I can remember when I was growing up, people around me would often sort of pay a small fee to put things in the local newspapers about things they wanted to buy or sell or events coming up. And these have been in the inflation basket since the 80s. But as you say, with so many things moving online these days, there's less case for having it in. Yeah.
And when you look at it, though, overall, the number of goods in and out of the basket doesn't change that much. I mean, there is a massive level of consistency here, isn't there? Is there one item that's essentially always been there?
People are always going to spend money on food and clothing, aren't they? I guess the reason we're having a similar number of items every year is that obviously we have lots of dedicated price collectors, both in the Office of National Statistics and in the companies we use outside, who have to go and collect these hundreds of thousands of prices every month to ensure the quality of the data. So we have to be reasonable about what they can collect. Having said that, I think we are embarking on quite an ambitious programme of using more and more kind of administrative data sets, and that gives us more scope to bring in more and more prices and potentially actually to add detail and granularity in the future.
Fascinating stuff, Stephen. I'm going to go and hoard up on salad cream in order to try and get it back in the basket next year. Thank you very much indeed. Stephen Burgess there from the ONS. Well, that is it from me on Business Live for today. Back, of course, tomorrow at 11:30. Do join me then if you can. Up next, it is the News Hour with Mark Austin, including continued coverage of that phone call between President Trump and President Putin this afternoon. Expecting details to emerge in the next hour or so. Stay tuned for that. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.